Today we're talking all about one of my very favorite dairy goat topics, and that is cheese making. Making cheese is one of my absolute favorite ways to use up our goat milk. And while it's true I do make a lot of hard cheeses like cheddar and Gouda to fill our family's dairy needs throughout the year, and I teach all of these cheese making skills inside my online course, Goat Cheese Academy, the absolute most basic cheese that you can make with goat milk is still one I return to on a weekly basis. This is a cheese known as chèvre or chèvre. It's the French word for goat. It's a soft, fresh cheese, and while making chèvre the traditional way is truly already the easiest thing in the world, I'm going to show you today my lazy method of making chèvre. If we haven't met before, hi, I'm Sarah from the Nest in the West. I live on a 2-acre homestead in Arizona with my family. I'm a homeschool mom to 4, a small-scale flower farmer, and I teach homesteaders the art of goat milk cheese making, as well as holistic dairy skills in my online courses and membership, the Dairy Goat Collective. Now, you may have tried chèvre, or as most people just call it, goat cheese, before, and thought that it tasted too goaty for your liking. I hear this from a lot of people. Oh, I don't like goat cheese. I don't like that strong taste. Well, let me reassure you that homemade chèvre or goat cheese made from raw milk tastes nothing like store-bought. It's a mild, creamy, delicious cheese that tastes great with savory things such as chive and lemon, or mixed with honey and jam, or other sweet things too. One of the things I love most about chèvre is that it is such a versatile cheese. And if you're not using a cream separator with your goat milk, it allows you to use it as a stand-in product for something like cream cheese, which ordinarily you would need a cream separator to make. I teach making chèvre the traditional way inside my course, and with that recipe, you would typically start the cheese the night before, allow it to culture and set overnight, and in the morning, strain the curd for a few hours before salting it. But with this lazy method, I'm literally taking milk straight from the barn inside and letting it culture in a glass gallon jar on my stovetop for the day. Now, this recipe I'm sharing with you today uses 1 gallon of milk, but you can totally half or even quarter this recipe and just adjust your ratios of your culture and rennet. We're gonna start this cheese in the barn. After you've finished milking your goats, rather than rapid chilling my milk like I normally might, instead I just filter the milk into a jar and bring it inside. Okay, so I've just come in from the barn, and so this milk is still nice and warm, straight from the goat, hasn't been chilled at all. And so I'm gonna show you my very lazy method of making chèvre. And actually this method, the idea was given to me by a member of my course, Goat Cheese Academy. She mentioned that she just puts the cultures and the rennet straight into a warm jar of milk and lets it culture all day. And I thought, oh my goodness, what a simple, easy way to fit chèvre making into the daily routine. And so I have adopted it too. So thank you to my course member who did that. I'm gonna share this with you today too. And at that point, I'm going to add my culture and rennet. You can definitely make this cheese using clabber or kefir as your culture, but you could also use freeze-dried cultures as well. Chèvre is such a soft set cheese that you only need a couple drops of rennet to make it set up into the type of curd you want. Be really cautious here because overdoing it will definitely affect the texture of your cheese. So basically, you're going to take your warm milk. I have a gallon here, and it's been filtered, but otherwise untouched. And you can use freeze-dried cultures. If you're using clabber or kefir, you can use those as well. I'm gonna use a freeze-dried culture today because it's what I have ready and on hand. You're gonna want a mesophilic culture. And so this is MA11. Usually I would use MM100, but I believe I'm out of that right now. So I'm gonna use a 1/8 teaspoon of the culture, and I'm just gonna sprinkle it onto the milk here. And then I'm gonna add my 2 drops of rennet, and I'm gonna stir it all up really well, put the cap back on, set it in a place where it's not gonna be disturbed, and just let it sit for about 8 hours, or until I see it clearly separate into curds and whey. Once we've added the culture and rennet and stirred it up really well, you're gonna cap your jar and set it in a place where it's not going to be disturbed. You want to set it off to the side where you're not going to have to move it, because disturbing the jar will definitely affect the coagulation of your curd. I usually set my cheese on the back of my stove or counter in a spot where I'm not going to really touch it, and then I just keep tabs on it throughout the day. Usually within 6 to 8 hours, you'll notice a separation of the curds and whey, and you can leave it up to 12 hours if that's how much time you have. Once you've noticed the separation between the curds and the whey, you can strain the curds from the whey, and I like to do this by hanging it into a large piece of cheesecloth. Getting the cheesecloth wet first really helps prevent any sticking of the cheese to the cheesecloth. And I like to just hang it from a faucet actually, but you could also hang it over a sturdy wooden spoon over a pot or a big bowl. Now, when it comes to cheesecloth, keep in mind that the type of cheesecloth you tend to find at a grocery store or craft store is not the kind you need for cheese making. You're going to want something like butter muslin or cheesecloth that is intended for squeezing nut milk or making soft cheeses. You can also totally use an old muslin baby blanket. Just make sure you boil it with some water and a little bit of baking soda to make sure it's super clean first. I like to leave my chèvre hanging for about 4 to 6 hours, and make sure you reserve the whey that's dripping from it just in case your chèvre turns out a little bit drier than you'd like. Now, I'll let you in on a little secret. Sometimes when I'm really busy, I will notice that the curds have separated from the whey, and I'll just pop that jar in the fridge for a day or two before I actually strain it. Remember, this is the lazy method, and so shortcuts like that are totally allowed. After your curds have strained, you're going to pour them out into a bowl, and what you should have is sort of a crumbly, sort of a creamy cheese that breaks apart when you touch it. Now, chèvre can be whatever texture you'd like. If you want it on the drier side, leave it a bit crumbly, but you can also mix back in some of that whey if you feel like you'd like it to be a little bit more creamy. Now we're going to stir in our salt, and I recommend starting with about half a teaspoon for a 1 gallon of milk chèvre recipe, and then adding more to taste, but you can do less if you like. You do definitely want to add some salt though, because the salt not only adds flavor, but it's also a preservation quality that will help your cheese last longer in the fridge. You're going to mix in the salt really well. You can add in a little bit more whey if you're thinking that the texture is a little too dry. And then at this point, you can wrap it and store it in the fridge. You could mix in some chives or other herbs or lemon. You could mix in some jam or fresh fruit. It's really great drizzled with honey or on crackers, and we use it in baking wherever you would normally use something like cream cheese. We use chèvre to make delicious ice cream, cheesecake, and it's so great crumbled into a casserole or in a sauce, or crumbled on top of veggies or fish or meat. Chèvre is not only delicious and super easy to make, but it's also just the perfect beginner's cheese. If making cheese with your goat milk is on your bucket list, this is a really great way to start. If you want to learn to make this cheese at home, you can find the link for the simple recipe down in the description. And whether you're wanting to dive into simple cheese making or go a little bit further, you'll probably really enjoy my free cheese making supply guide, which I've also linked in the description. Making cheese is 100% the most rewarding use of your goat milk. And I love getting to teach beginners the art of turning their beautiful goat milk into soft cheeses and wheels of hard, amazing aged cheeses too. You can find out more about my recipes and process and everything covered inside Goat Cheese Academy by visiting the link in the description. I hope you enjoyed this super easy, lazy method of making chèvre. And if you make it, I'd love to hear how it turns out. So leave a comment and let me know. I'm cheering you on in your goat journey, friend. I'll see you in the next video.